huge topic. I don't know that we want to cover abortion in this one, right? But that's a hot topic right now. So racism, we can talk about the war on drugs and how that has to go in with racism. But I don't know if weed is more focused on the left, or originally was on the left. But the drug war in the prison system, allude to people wanting to control our bodies. Yeah, okay. So bodily autonomy. I like that. We are low-key dog whistling, but in a good way. In a good way. Milo got his head figuratively lopped off a while ago when the alt-right turned on him. Milo is one of the reactionaries. Weed security, what's that? Did someone say weed security? No, we said weed, healthcare, job security. I'm not sure what weed security is. Found this new guy who I found was an idiot and was just triggering people. Someone named him. Yeah. I'm spoopy. Oh, blasted. I appreciate you. From the perspective of a woman, a fetus is not a person. So if you wanted bodily autonomy for a fetus, like, I don't know how you would really argue that other than arguing that it has the rights to someone else's body, which we don't agree to in any sense. So economic inequality, job security goes into that, right? What else are we concerned about? People not being able to pay their bills. The topic, what do we want to cover in economic inequality? I'm thinking, so we are targeting people who are open to feminism. I honestly think talking about the concern around low-paying jobs, which is what our generation is going through, and the cost of college. Do we want to focus in? Wage stagnation. I don't know, like, how can we, it is wage, so wage stagnation is the, yeah. Actually, and we can even get stats on that. So that's how we could cover this, right? We're basically creating our whole pamphlet, and then we'll plug the information in. So the drug war in the prison system is another area we could definitely get stats or history of the drug war, like really briefly, and how that targets specifically race. And then we can, abortion just is such a hot topic right now. I almost think we want to go into the big cases of abortion right now. That could be one way. What is another way that we could talk about that as a current events thing? Because we are going from a very current issues kind of deal, right? And then from there, I almost want to say we're experiencing more hate crimes, right? So hate crimes against LGBT people and trans people. So I would say it doesn't necessarily fall under sexism. LGBT issues often are highly tied to sexism because sexism reinforces and basically you don't experience homophobia. We're going to have a whole stream on the ties between sexism and homophobia. But right now, I definitely would say we see LGBT issues as definitely connected, but also a separate issue, an additional issue. So I almost want to say homophobia and transphobia, but we don't want to. Do we want to come out and straight up say how do we want to? We're against, because we've got this theme of against this, against that, against this, against that. Define hate crimes and tell them how not to spread hate. I hear you, Armin. We could go into how hate crimes are rising, or do we want to focus on... Honestly, I think we just want to say against... We don't want to say transphobia necessarily, but how do we want to word that? Because everyone's familiar with racism, sexism. People are familiar with transphobia, but I almost don't want to use that word. Do we want to use that word? Because I feel like that's a newer thing coming out, and it's really hard for me to pinpoint. Or do we just want to say for trans rights? I almost want to say for trans rights and talk about how trans rights has been being broken down. Yeah, absolutely, Mithy. And I just saw an article about in Kenya, 2 women, I believe, being pulled because of their hormones, even though they're just cis women. Yeah. So it's happening. It's not just that one, but there's 2 more in Kenya. Amy says, yeah, that's what I was talking about. I missed Amy. People of color, women. Yeah, absolutely. So that's like a combination of sexism, trans, like, it stems from the whole conversation around trans women, right? But it's like racism, sexism, and transphobia. I don't know how to cover that in this. Because that is something we could pick apart in its own thing, right? I almost want to talk about the trans military ban or the healthcare issue. We all know that healthcare issue, right? The religious freedoms thing for the healthcare. Do we want to go into that? Do you think that would be something to cover? Or do we want to go into the trans ban from the military? Or we could even go into Jordan Peterson and his attack on trans people using their pronouns. What else could we go into? I almost just want to say for trans inclusivity. Who are the people that believe these things or know about these things that aren't feminists? So, I would definitely say, I grew up in an area where I wanted to support people and I wanted to be inclusive, but I didn't really know that much about feminism, right? So, people who have misinformation about feminism, I don't know, do you think this is too on the nose? Or not on the nose, but I'm gonna catch up with chat really quick. So, see, me and my wife have a joint account where we both use and have trans friends on it. So, the other put in a comment. I was just commenting on, that's a dude, you know, right? I was ignoring it, and he sent me a long message saying it's people like us who made sports shit because some trans person has broken all records of girls and violence. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Q Books, or Bucks, I'm gonna tell you real clear right now, Jordan Peterson is absolutely a silly butt. He is going against a bill that is against targeted harassment. It's not compelled speech. And let me tell you why it's not compelled speech. No one has to use a trans person's pronouns. They just have to not use pronouns that don't fit them. All right? So literally, if they just shut the fuck up, they're not gonna have the problem. Or even if they just use that person's name, they're not gonna have a problem. Just don't be a dickhead and you'll be fine. Problem solved. So Jordan Peterson thinks he's this big superhero for freedom of speech. No, he's not. And he's even properly gendered a trans person by accident and then corrected himself to make his point. That is full-on assholery. That is indefensible. Indefensible. So he's not fighting for freedom of speech or fighting against compelled speech. He's fighting for his right to harass people. Good on him. I'm so proud. That's my rant on Jordan Peterson for the day. I'm done with him. Done with him. If it isn't struck down on that count alone, you're in for a chaotic legal situation across the U.S. Yeah, absolutely. So he's just making a big deal out of something that's not even a thing. Yeah, Saga, welcome into the stream. Glad to have you here, friend. Glad to have you here. She kept going on and on. So that's someone who's definitely uncomfortable with trans people and openly attacking, right? I don't know about this religious freedom healthcare thing. Is this some weird pro-anti-LGBTQ plus move from the... Yeah. So basically Trump is like, we're going to extend religious freedoms. So if you want to deny healthcare to someone based on your religious beliefs, you do not have to perform abortions. You do not have to... Basically, it's going to be used in a way that... I don't believe that trans people should be doing what they're doing, and therefore I'm not going to provide them health care. If you can't do the fucking job, don't be a healthcare worker. Go do something that you can do. I'm sorry, Blasted. I'm sorry that you had to deal with someone who's transphobic and not getting it. I heard there are a lot of alt-righters. Yep. Yeah, basically religious freedoms over human rights. I wasn't always a feminist. But then you hit the feminism, didn't ya? It is, Gus. It is a huge problem. So I guess the problem that we have here is how are we gonna talk about trans inclusivity? I almost think so let's think about what we're getting at. I think this one could be an easy one, right? This one's literally just, okay, so here are our hard topics, right? The drug war and the prison system. Sexism in the intense abortion things that are coming out. Like, you care about fighting these things. You care about people being able to have economic mobility, but you're seeing this wage stagnation. So that's something you want to fight. You want people to be We don't even have to say for. You just want people to be free to be themselves without harassment. Right? Please stop or I will report. I know, I was like, what do you want me to say? I mean, one day. So my thought is eventually we're just gonna have no division of women and men in sports. And that will make things a lot easier. You're kind of jumping into the deep end with these topics. Is it meant to be a way to recruit or filter? I'd say recruit. So I agree with you that we're jumping really far in there. But like, what are some other ideas? So where are we jumping in really? Yeah. Abortion is going to be a tough one. Do we think that... That's why I was thinking about the big cases. And when I say big cases, I say extreme cases. Those people are against the extreme. I should say extreme. Do you think that's still too... That's almost too repelling though, isn't it? Should we avoid that one? How else would we cover sexism? I feel like that's the like clearest. Same with trans inclusivity. For... I almost say like LGBTQI. Well, we'll just say LGBT plus, because that's what people not knowledgeable. I don't want to say not knowledgeable, but not familiar with feminism are going to be more comfortable with. Miffy, what are you really eating? So if Mr. President can bill passed, can someone refuse to operate on someone if he's not of other person religion? Like, can a doctor say, sorry, I can't operate because he's not of my religion? So I'm curious to see how this will be worked, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what is it, the Temple of Satanism? I don't think it's just saying the trans, but I think so. We have trans in here, right? We just are gonna include it because I think it is a wider umbrella, and I was focusing on trans individuals in specific because I think of myself, but LGBT inclusivity, like, we can reference the hate crimes that have been against the LGBT community pretty easily. We could do it for specifically the trans community, but if we want to be reaching the widest topics, LGBT would be the best. So we're not leaving out the T. It's definitely there. The T is there, Mithy. But I think focusing exclusively, specifically on that, for our whole point, I think we want to include the more broad point is what I'm getting at. We don't want a few subtle filters to keep people, yeah. Absolutely, Wild Man Dan, I agree. But we want to we want them to be like light filters, right? So we don't want someone who's like super homophobic coming to us. That's not gonna help. The draft isn't our #1 focus right now. I mean, it seems like equality in the states has been hit with the draft. And even, like, the draft hasn't been used much. So I don't know if we want to go into the draft specifically. Larger audience, there are some... Yeah. I agree, Radio Wave. It's unfortunate. An abortion is a hard one to cover, too. Do we think focusing on the extreme... So the drug war is like a heavy topic, right? Wage stagnation is a really painful topic. This one, I think we can just say, like, basically, you're, 5 reasons you're already a feminist. You want people to basically be able to be who they want and love who they want, right? On abortion, a middle waypoint would be agreeing to save a woman's life. Gus, I'm gonna take that and say, not being okay with a woman going to prison for miscarrying, right? Because that is absolutely absurd. And I think, like, even if the person is a little bit not sure how they feel on abortion, I think we can all agree that sending a woman to prison for miscarrying, potentially sending anyone to prison for having a miscarriage, is absolutely unacceptable, right? So that's not even a middle way point. You didn't care if people pee sitting or standing. It's just happening in the States. These bills are coming out just now that are trying to fight for that. So it's something that's coming into the political conversation. And so if you see me getting on here and being really, really, really fucking intense on abortion rights, this is why. This is why. Requiring a procedure that kills both an already dying embryo and its mother? What do you mean, Hikari? Are you talking about denying a procedure that could kill?
Forged us into weapons, made us.
I'm confused. Does using want infer that it is a choice? What do you mean? I'm sorry, I'm missing where you're at. We're gonna get to that. That is one of our upcoming topics. Armin, I'm not familiar with what that is. Ali, actually, yes. So it's a negligence thing, or I was reading into this. Ectopic pregnancy? I'm not familiar. What is that? Forget the name of the condition, but a zygote can get caught in the fallopian tube, and a Georgian bill requires doctors to remove the zygote and put it back into the... even though there has... Oh my god. Holy sh... Holy cow. This just keeps getting worse. Okay, so we could do some research. Do we want to go down the ectopic or ectopic pregnancy? I kind of want to go down the welcome in, Noble. I kind of want to go down the path of arresting women for the miscarriages, because I think there's a very clear emotional appeal in that, because I can't imagine, I don't know if anyone in here has had someone in their life that's experienced a miscarriage, but it is horrifying to be, I know, I'm thinking of a friend that his partner had a miscarriage, and talking to him about his emotions was like dreadful, right? Like, it affected him and it affected her, and to see her get arrested for that, or be, even if she wasn't arrested but just went through some trial or something, I can't imagine them having to go through their grief on top of going through a trial or potentially her being in jail. Welcome in, WLP. We're talking about the recent things that came out. Oh, your mom had a lot of miscarriages. Have you ever talked to her about that? The fetal heartbeat bill detected at 6 weeks is really skewy because the fetus doesn't even have a heart yet at 6 weeks. I'm not familiar with that. I mean, I'm familiar with the 6 weeks heartbeat thing. Hey, enjoy your Mother's Day dinner, Leader Blue. Yeah, it's a hard topic. It would be a hard topic to broach, and I wouldn't like free therapy. Yeah, I hear you, Gus. I mean, this is the potential that comes out of these. I don't know, but I can Google. Hello. Noble, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. Also, I feel like there was someone else I wanted to welcome in. Bigglesworth. So we are making a pamphlet. And the topic of our pamphlet... Where am I at? We're up here. So our topic is why feminism benefits everyone. In the front panel, the title is going to be the 5 reasons you are already a feminist. So I guess it's almost just like... It's not necessarily why feminism benefits everyone, but it's pulling in people who might be feminists or might be on the edge and talking about why it is talking about why they care about it and why it benefits people. Like why they are there for it. It is. So, Brell, we're going a totally different direction. And the idea behind it is we are pulling people into the breadline. We are spreading that feminist propaganda and pulling those people in here so they can help us spread the feminist propaganda and get them into the breadline to strengthen the breadline for you, for I'm Really Important, for Izzy, and for all the leftist content creators and all the people here who want to see that breadline in effect.
Showed us that freedom was worth dying for. So we turned on the Watchers. We knew we were strong.
Welcome in, Brell. Can I get a shout out for Brell, by the way? I'd really appreciate it. So we decided with our last pamphlet, we were targeting maybe people who would go to I'm Really Important stream. And fun side notes, I would love to be doing this same topic, but for other communities. Radio Wave, thank you so much for the biddies for the feminist propaganda. I appreciate you supporting the feminist propaganda in the breadline. Good morning, Bigglesworth. So that's what we're working on. We are strengthening the breadline, which is the leftist side of the internet, because we know that the right wing and the Nazis even have this pipeline that just pulls people in and drags them deeper and drags them deeper. We want to drag them up to get some heckin' bread and equality. That's what we're here for. So we are going to be doing that. So we're targeting people in our community, but in the future, I want to do collabs, and I didn't message you about this yet, Brell, but I want to do a collab with you like this, that is grassroots activism, and I want to go out with you in Chicago somewhere and distribute this somehow. And we can stream it and talk about what we're doing and show people how that works. And then I also want to do it with I'm Really Important's community, and if Izzy wants in, I'm totally all over that. Strengthening the breadline. Weed might be a gateway to the breadline. Weed, war on drugs, history of racism. Weed, that gateway drug, Mithy. Absolutely. So do we want to... I think that's something that we could get in. That is an interesting concept. I'm just going to copy this really quick, Mithy, and we're going to save that for our next one. Or I can't say our very next one, but an upcoming one, right? An idea to maybe get into in the future. Because I think you're really on point with that. Absolutely. We can get our stoners in here. I'd love to have our weed pals. So, did we...
And Sweden may be preparing to join the UK and US on the list of countries looking to prosecute WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. That's according to a senior prosecutor who said Swedish authorities will announce this coming Monday whether or not they'll reopen a previously closed sexual assault investigation on Assange. So for more on this, we're being joined now by former UK MP George Galloway. Hello there, George. So let's start with Assange. He's currently serving a 50-week sentence in the UK and then most likely headed for extradition to the US. What could the Swedes be after here? Could this be a backup plan in case his extradition to the U.S. is denied?
Yes, it's a belt and braces approach. If the British courts were to uphold what they say are their traditions, they cannot possibly agree to this grossly disproportionate punishment that would await Julian Assange if he were extradited into the US justice system. So if the British courts don't come good and pack Julian off to prison for 99 years, well, send him to Sweden on these trumped up, ridiculous charges, which have now twice been abandoned, but might on the thrice be brought back to life. It would be laughable if it were not so tragic. Sweden actually has an even more slavish relationship to the United States in foreign policy terms than Britain does. So it's very much an insurance policy, that's for sure. Making the point, actually, as many of us did right from the beginning, and I could show you my scars that I sustained for so doing, in making the case that these sexual assault allegations in the very first place were entirely trumped up, entirely bogus.
Yeah, if they can't get you on one thing, they'll find another way to get you. That's for sure. Yesterday, George, the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture visited Assange in Belmarsh prison to evaluate his condition, and he is meeting with the UK officials about it today. Assange's friend and big-time celebrity, Pamela Anderson, also visited him just this week and questioned why he needs to be kept at a supermax prison for a minor non-violent offense. Do you think there's any chance that these publicity efforts might help Assange?
Yes, I do think things are beginning to turn. In parenthesis, I say, all those decades ago when I was watching Pamela Anderson bounding along that beach in Baywatch, I never thought I'd find myself a comrade in arms with her. But I am, and she has been a magnificent aid and assistance to Julian in his hour of need, and we're all very proud of her here. She's built up a tremendous constituency here. But even amongst liberal journalists who have been laughing and alternatively sneering at Julian Assange over these last years, there is the beginning of an awakening of what it means to journalism, what it means to truth-telling, to whistleblowing, if Assange is sent off on these ridiculously disproportionate charges. A man who merely published the truth may go to prison for 99 years. Just think about that.
Yeah, just hair-raising to think, George. I want to switch gears here to something else happening in Europe. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban and the former Italian Prime Minister Berlusconi are both calling on Europe's center-right parties to join forces with far-right and nationalist parties. What's driving that shift, and what could the consequences be if they join up?
It's on.
It's a crisis in neoliberalism amongst the globalized capitalist class. They hope to sleepwalk everyone into their brave new world with no borders, no boundaries, just unlimited profit centers that labor could be moved around from one place to another. That balloon has dramatically burst. And the new populist forces, some of them right-wing, some of them far-right, some of them left and right, as in the case of Italy, or in the case of the Yellow Vests in France, and to some extent in the case of Nigel Farage and Brexit, though not quite left enough, a bit too much right, but the old order is collapsing in front of our eyes. And you ask what it means? It means a gigantic spanner in the works after May 26th, when these European elections will be finished across the European Union, and a big majority against Brussels, against the centralization forces.
It is a new day in politics, George. As always, appreciate your insights on this. George Galloway, thank you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.
If you ever buy home decor or housewares online,
Pew Research Center recently asked a bunch of Americans, are you bothered by hearing people speak in public in languages other than English? And that seems like a weird question to ask. Who would be, like, of all the things to be bothered by, why would you be bothered by that? But it turns out some people are bothered by that. It turns out there are actually some trends in terms of who's bothered by it. Can you guess? If we're to break it down politically? Well, 47% of Republican or Republican-leaning white respondents said they would be bothered some or a lot by a person speaking a language in public that was not English. 18% of white respondents who identified as Democrat or Democrat-leaning said that they would be bothered. So that's 47 Republican, 18 Democrat. Neither of those numbers are good, although one is obviously slightly less good. What do you think?
No entiendo
Could you not?
Nihongo hanasemasu. I just like it so much. I really like stories like this where it's like, you know, I kind of believe that this is probably the case, and I like the experience. I like to imagine the people who are taking this survey that are like, finally, someone's asking the real tough questions. I'm gonna guess it pisses me off to hear this. It really takes a lot out of my day to hear another.
Hold up.
What?
What is that? On my show, I can't read any of that little bit.
You're gonna hate the Gaelic one.
Oh my God! On my head!
What is Thorsiger and Publicanda?
I don't know how to.
What is the game show? I don't know. That's Scotch Gaelic,
Is
according
it
to
Scotch
Google
Gaelic? Because it
Translate.
actually looks like Elvish. I don't
probably
know
what they mean.
anything. I've studied a few languages. I don't know
For
anything.
those who are reading the podcast, we're having listening to the podcast, we're having a psychotic episode. There's no reason
No
for us to
idea
be
what's
doing
going
that.
on. Okay, wait. I want to give some more information before we launch into it.
See this.
58% of white Democrats said they wouldn't be bothered. 26% of white Republicans also answered the same. But that is, to me, more interesting than those who admitted that they'd be bothered. That means out of a huge group of Republicans, only 1 in 4 wouldn't be bothered or aren't sure if they'd be bothered. And what does that answer even mean? You've been in public, you've heard people speak languages, you don't know yet whether you'd be bothered. Those people are bothered, okay? Can we just admit that?
It just bothers me so much that we Americans don't have our own language. Here we are speaking some stupid empire's dumb, stupid language. And that's why I advocate on behalf of my Republican brothers and sisters to just use words that have been invented in English since the invention of America. Hamburger, McDonald's, French fry.
Anyway, really fast, I want to break this down by race, though, because 34% of all respondents, white respondents, regardless of party, would be bothered by this. 24% of black respondents, the same percentage of Asian respondents, 14% of Hispanics said the same. And look, we're obviously joking around because we don't take anything seriously anymore because our ability to seriously engage with the news has been destroyed by the last few years. But this is serious because the percentage who say that it would bother them, for the most part, they'll take it out on their partner later. They'll complain or something. But some don't just complain. Some take it farther. So let's take just a brief tour through how this plays out day by day across the country through a few headlines. California gas station clerk fired after ranting against women speaking Spanish. He doesn't just take it internally, he takes it to his job and he attacks people who speak Spanish. Texas principal under fire for alleged anti-immigrant bullying and harassment, including for people who are speaking Spanish. Restaurant worker who says she was fired for speaking Spanish fights back. People are losing their jobs. People are getting attacked for speaking this language. Some just get annoyed, others turn it into violence or, political activism on the right. So this is incredibly consequential in practice.
Yeah.
Really fast, my girlfriend, who is Mexican-American, she was physically accosted not long after Donald Trump's election in a laundromat. She was speaking Spanish to a friend of hers, and the woman got up in her face, backed her up to the table, and started ranting about making America great again and stuff like that. Triggered so much by simply hearing a little bit of Spanish spoken casually in a public place that she considered the possibility of assaulting a person that she didn't know.
And you can, it's insane, and this is just like the weird trickle that ends up being making someone feel comfortable enough to accost someone, and that is the difference between free speech and just being a jerk in a way that you have legal liability for when you go and essentially assault someone in a laundromat. And I am not hurting your free speech by pointing out that you're being a jerk when you do that. And if you work at a gas station and you rant against a customer for speaking Spanish, you're legally allowed to do that. But if I run that gas station, I should absolutely be allowed to fire you for it.
For attacking a person.
For attacking a customer.
Yeah, and if you think that this is I get it. It's a little bit weird for a pew poll, but this is important, and this also means something. Steve King, who's just an out-and-out white nationalist, white supremacist in office right now, going around, publicly supporting other white supremacists in other elections in other countries. How did he get his start? He got his start pushing English is the only acceptable language legislation. That's what he did. That's what he got elected on. When he was a new representative, that's what he was pushing. So this is a hot-button thing for those sorts of people, and it represents something far more, and something I would say far more insidious.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Go for it.
No, you go. You have the last comment.
It just really makes me very angry in a general way to see that this is the way things are developing in this nation, because the three stories, including this one that we've discussed, are about essentially a shift in what people feel is acceptable in this country. And when they're talking about making America great again, they're not. The way they describe their approach to doing that is not great at all. No. It is the worst. It caters to the worst instincts, and it makes America terrible. And I totally am fine with the concept of making America great again. I think America's great when people are allowed to speak whatever damn language they want.
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of times I prefer that it wasn't English, because if it's not English, I can't understand it. I was at a restaurant last night, and in a neighboring restaurant, a group of young people came out, and one said really loudly, "We need to figure out who's going to bring Jordan home, who lives closest to Jordan." And then presumably Jordan said something, and then that main person said, "Oh, no, Jordan." And if they'd been speaking any language other than English, I would not have had to know how horribly they treated me. But now I know the group dynamic, and it makes me sad.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today for more.
Remember all those conspiracy theories about how Barack Obama was not going to leave the White House after his second presidential term was over? He was as some said, going to declare martial law and suspend the 2016 election, or he was going to violate every check and balance that our country has in order to maintain control. And then, of course, Barack Obama had never mentioned anything that would suggest he was going to do that, and he peacefully left on his helicopter, turning over control to President Donald Trump. And if there was ever a case to be made for an exception in turning over control to such a buffoon, it kind of would have been Donald Trump. And yet Barack Obama, as predicted by any rational, clear-thinking person, very, very peaceful. Donald Trump has now retweeted the suggestion that he should get a 6-year term instead of a 4-year term because he was robbed of 2 years from his presidency by the Mueller probe, and he referred to those 2 years as being stolen from him. I know you're saying, wait, what's stolen? Not stolen, stolen, but we'll get to that in a second. There's this disgusting guy named Jerry Falwell Jr. He's the son of the late Jerry Falwell, who, in my mind, is most known for blaming 9/11 on abortionists and gays. And Jerry Falwell Jr. tweeted, and Donald Trump subsequently retweeted a tweet which says, after the best week ever for Donald Trump, no obstruction, no freedom. New York Times admits Barack Obama did spy on his campaign, and the economy is soaring. I now support reparations. Trump should have 2 years added to his first term as payback for time stolen by this corrupt failed coup. So first of all, no, that's not constitutional. And if we care about that, then the answer to this is obviously no. But secondly, this is a political statement from a guy whose church is tax exempt because churches aren't supposed to be doing politics. Now, is doing politics on Twitter a violation of the nonprofit charter that churches have? I don't know for sure. The legal experts would have to fight it out. But the IRS should definitely be looking into this. But Trump sees it, and he retweets it. And then he decides to take the idea of those 2 stolen years to the next level. Falwell tweeted that on Saturday night. Sunday, Donald Trump tweets, despite the tremendous success that I have had as president, including perhaps the greatest economy and most successful first 2 years of any president in history, they have stolen 2 years of our presidency, delusion, that we will never be able to get back. The Stalin typo is so ridiculous and so embarrassingly hilarious that Donald Trump ended up deleting the tweet, but fortunately, we have it for you anyway. But let's get back to the primary issue here, because the Stalin typo is funny, but there's actually a really important thing here. Is there a chance Trump will try to not relinquish control of the White House whenever this national nightmare ultimately ends, either in 2 years or in 6 years? Nancy Pelosi is now concerned that that's something Trump will do. She's concerned that if it's a very small margin by which Trump loses in 2020, Trump will not relinquish power, or will try not to. Trump has actually said that the only way Democrats can beat him in 2020 is voter fraud. He said he likes the idea of the possibility of doing president for life in the U.S. the way that China has put in place that possibility under the current administration. We would, quote, maybe try it sometime. So as I've said before, I believe that law enforcement agencies of the United States will not allow Trump to stay in power beyond his actual electoral mandate, period. But every single person who, when Barack Obama was president, was stoking the fears of Obama's not going to leave. Why are you now silent? Because there was nothing to suggest that was something Barack Obama was going to do. Trump has actually floated the narratives that he can't lose unless there's foul play. That, combined with his malignant narcissism and weaponized ignorance, actually gets us closer than Obama ever was to a situation where the president tries to retain control beyond when he's actually elected. But then the most disturbing part of it is tons of Trump's followers agree that he should get an extra 2 years. The most important thing here is not Trump's misspelling of stalling. It's not that Trump has actually floated this idea of, maybe president for life would be nice, and I can only lose by voter fraud. Trump has a significant number of these brown-nosing sycophants who think it's reasonable for Trump to get an extension to his presidential term. They claim to be constitutional conservatives. They pray at the altar of the Constitution as if it is a sacred text.